Welcome back to Sports Video. In this video, I want to show the different layouts for different sports. Sports can have a variety of systems, right? Football is a lot different from baseball, volleyball, hockey. I want to give you guys some examples of things to think about when you're trying to accommodate both coaches for their instant replay and their analytics and the production teams for the fans. Let's jump into it. So we're going to look at like camera placement and some of the best practices when we're talking about video switching, some of the standards that come from the broadcast industry, and then, of course, trying to accommodate sports analytics. So, how do the coaches also able to get in on these investments made on cameras to get those camera placements the way they need to be? So, where you put the camera defines what the audience is going to see, right? It can enhance the viewer experience and engagement, but if you put it in a bad place, and I'll give you an example. When we were at this hockey game recently, I put in these cameras and you can sort of see them. I'm going to pause this shot because you can sort of see them just barely up here. One of the things I thought was crazy is that all the parents started to stand up, and I literally could not see anything because the parents were all standing in the way. So I realized how important it is to put these cameras up high. So poor placement can really screw you up. So, getting the good placement will have viewer satisfaction. It'll increase what your production can do. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Permanently installing these cameras is a great idea. And always getting the wide shots, right? That's what the coaches day in and day out will say. I want to see all 22 players. I want to see the full tactical view. In other examples that I've shown, you can see how important it is to get high up above the players and the parents, right? And showing the games. So just some examples there, but there's a lot of things you can do. Always cover the entire field of play. Anticipate the key moments. If you're using multiple camera angles, great. You can do those close-ups, but avoid obstructions and try to get smooth tracking. Now, the biggest rule of thumb here for sports broadcasting is called the 180-degree camera rule. You should never be putting cameras on the other side of this field. Why is that? Because if you start to cut to a camera that's on the other side, suddenly the viewer loses orientation and isn't sure which way the play is moving. The only times that you can do this is if you're zooming in on like an opposing coach or a player and it's so tight that you wouldn't disorient the viewer. But generally speaking, the viewer needs to know, is the play going this way or is the play going this way? And if you keep all the cameras on this side of the field, they'll always know, no matter which camera you cut to, which way the play is going. So stick with the cameras. If you look at most stadiums and the way things are set up, the players are usually over on this side, okay? And the cameras are always on this side. It almost always happens that way, and it's done for a reason. The other rule of thumb to think about is the rule of thirds, okay? So essentially, this is a pretty good example of that. You've got this third over here, which is showing kind of the oncoming traffic. You've got the middle third showing basically the goal and the goalie here. This is a really good example of the rule of thirds. It's just a framing technique. You can see there's not really any ceiling up here. There's a little bit of wasted space, but I would argue that it's not because you've also got in this third, you've got a really good shot of the scoreboard, right? So this is a good example. Maybe it could be tilted a little bit further down, but a good example of the rule of thirds, which applies to pretty much every camera that you've got. And we're talking about setting up cameras. Small courts are somewhat the easiest. And I'm going to show you some test footage for this. Essentially, putting a camera on either side of the edges allows you to get that back and forth shot of, this is tennis, obviously. This is showing a camera auto tracking the subject there. So the PTZ camera locked in on a player, and boom, it will be able to follow that player the whole time. So in small courts like tennis, pickleball, badminton, basketball to a degree, volleyball, and squash, these setups work really well. Just having one camera on either side, a network generally to power the cameras, and then a joystick controller to manually control them when you need to. So what ends up setting up here is you've got your cameras, you've got your network controlling them, your joystick, and then potentially your video production software. Now, you could obviously go 4K, and what the 4K does is the 4K allows you to get more quality from the recordings. And so if you're doing a post-production setup, right, where you want to be able to zoom in a little deeper and you're doing some post-production, the 4K comes into handy here as well. So this is an example of tennis. And then I want to give an example here of this would be for a 2-player tennis match here. You've got 5 cameras total, wide angle to show the in between the net. And the net is good for instant replay. This would be like, a pretty high-end tennis stream. But when that net hits the ball, you want to show, which side of the net did the ball fall. You might not use this camera one very often, but you could if in instant replay, for example. Now in basketball, again, you'll always notice that we're showing all cameras on one side, right? There's no cameras over here. You might have your controller over on that side or your network on that side, but all the cameras are on one side. One of the things that I need to update here, because I've done a little bit more testing, is always a center court camera, okay? Always a center court camera going back and forth. And then these other two, see, this is a better example. You got your center court one. And then these 2 and 3, what they do is oftentimes capture the free throw line there or a tip off, and then you can do a little bit more close-ups of the team. So again, simple setups, cameras, network, controller. Very straightforward for basketball. Pickleball is a little different. You have one in the center here. And again, these cameras on the corners here, this should probably be changed. This should probably be more like this. There we go. You can get the players just like tennis, and then that crossover shot there. Now in swimming, again, a lot of this is looking the same, right? We've got a camera to get the wide shot here, kind of following everyone in the center. The cam 3 and cam 1 can show, you're going to be able to know which way the swimmers are moving. So you can cut between these two. And then camera 3, for example, can shoot downward. If this is where they're jumping in at, you can get a nice close-up of everyone from there. This one, showing people moving down this way, for example. And then you've got your wide here to show a wide of the whole thing. So that's another example of swimming. Now, football is one where a lot of cameras get used, and the end zone cameras especially are super popular. We've shown some examples of the end zone cameras. Again, you got your wide angle camera that's just going to go up and down the field, right? And it might be at the 50-yard line. It might move down to this line. It just kind of follows but stays wide. Numbers 1 and 3 are going to get a little tighter, and then 4 and 5 being your end zone cameras. Baseball is a very interesting one, and I'm working with local high school to do a baseball field now. The hard ones to get are the cameras 4 and 5, and if you can get networking cables run out there, you'll be golden. But if you do need to have wireless, you can also get wireless. The reason why these shots are here is because to show that classic shot of the batter, right? So the batter from all the way back there, you can zoom in a 20x or a 30x camera and get the batter. And then you've got your first base, your second base, etc., base players, runners, etc. PTZ cameras are great for baseball. Soccer, very similar to tennis and also basketball. You've got your tactical wide, the zoom in, goal cameras. With the goal cameras, there's 2 ways to look at it. You can take this goal camera and zoom all the way in to show the goalie on the far end, which I think is more popular in soccer than maybe in hockey, which hockey likes that behind the scenes net. But depending on the drive, you can have this be a wide shot, zoomed out so you can see the oncoming players, or a tight shot, right? So there's multiple ways to set up these cameras even live during a production. For sports analytics, sometimes you just want to cover the whole darn field. You can use static cameras as well. Although I will say most cameras have some movement. It just has to do with kind of the energy that you get from a sporting match. I'll show kind of an example here of a play happening. You see how the camera kind of follows the action. That's very normal in sports and gives a pretty good example. Now I have a wide angle shot and then I go back to like a zoomed in shot, for example, and giving it a little movement, a little bit of play is always good. So with that being said, you can do fixed cameras if you want it to be easier. But again, the movement I think is worth it. And this is just kind of give you an idea. A 1/3 camera is a tight. A 2/3 camera is 2/3 of the field, right? It's wide. You're going back and forth, right? You're showing a full stream there. Looks like there was a goal. At goal times, we obviously zoom in a little more. But you can see how wide the camera can be. Another goal. It's always fun. This is what makes production fun, right? Getting the goals on camera and making those highlight reels. So soccer, and then that just gives you some examples, right? Hopefully that gives you some ideas on the camera placement opportunities for cameras. Of course, you can always reach out, ask questions. I'd love for you to share the cool camera angles that you might be getting for your sports productions. There is no perfect right way, but broadcasters have established kind of the standards of what people are used to seeing. So you can watch your favorite sport, see what they're doing, and then work backwards, right? I watch these different sports and see what they're doing and then consider, where are those cameras? Where are they being placed? How can I replicate some of that? And, start somewhere and continue to grow. All right. We'll see you guys in the next video.